I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Thursday, February the 19th, 2015. In what is perhaps another sign of strain in U.S.-Israel relations, the U.S. State Department suggested yesterday that Israel was, quote, cherry-picking the information it shared regarding details of the talks the U.S. was participating in with Iran. The State Department also acknowledged that not everything being discussed in those talks was being shared with Israel. State Department spokeswoman Jen Psaki told the press that this was nothing new.
Obviously, we work to protect sensitive information in the negotiation.
And when asked if the U.S. is withholding information from inside the talks from the Israelis, she answered correct. Psaki also said Israel was being selective in the information it was sharing regarding the talks.
Not everything you're hearing from the Israeli government is an accurate reflection of the details of the talks.
Both Psaki and fellow spokesperson Josh Earnest also stressed, though, that the U.S. negotiators continue to brief their Israeli counterparts.
There's no country that is not participating in the negotiations that has greater insight into what's going on at that negotiating table.
At the same time, U.S. Ambassador to Israel Dan Shapiro said this week that Israel and the U.S. continue to have shared interests in preventing Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. Speaking in Tel Aviv on Tuesday, Shapiro said the U.S. is determined to prevent it and will, adding our cooperation and consultation with Israel on this shared goal continues, even at moments when we may disagree on one or another aspect of this approach. Leaders of Jewish organizations addressed the White House summit on countering violent extremism yesterday. Among them, Director of International Jewish Affairs for the American Jewish Committee, Rabbi Andrew Baker, who told the summit that Jews in Europe are living in fear. Referring to the recent attacks in Copenhagen and Paris, Baker said that while there are those who are reluctant to recognize it as such, it should be obvious that this radical Islamist extremism is also deeply anti-Semitic. Baker said the crisis in Europe demands urgency and new tools with which to respond effectively to fight the phenomenon. And Jewish leaders will meet in Jerusalem in a few days to address the crisis in Europe as well. Leaders from around the world and members of the Board of Governors of the Jewish Agency for Israel will meet Sunday through Tuesday in the city and also address other global challenges facing the Jewish community. Oslo has decided to permanently close the street to vehicular traffic leading to its main synagogue in order to better protect it. The decision was made in light of the recent attack in Copenhagen, where a Jewish security guard was shot and killed outside its main synagogue. According to the president of Oslo's Jewish community, Irvin Cohn, the synagogue is also planning to hold its services outside this coming Saturday, as the community is expecting hundreds to turn out in a show of solidarity for the Jewish community. As we reported to you, an initiative by Norwegian Muslims called Peace Ring is calling on Muslims and other non-Jews to encircle the synagogue in a show of support and to express their outrage at the recent Copenhagen attacks. Over 400,000 people marched in silence in the pouring rain in Buenos Aires yesterday, marking 1 month since the death of Jewish Argentine Special Prosecutor Alberto Nisman. The march was a demand for justice for the prosecutor who led the investigation into the 1994 AMIA bombing that killed 85 people at the Jewish Community Center in Buenos Aires. Nisman was found dead of a gunshot wound to the head the day before he was to present his findings in front of a congressional hearing in Argentina, which reportedly included evidence of a massive cover-up of Iran's involvement in the terror attack. Nisman's death was initially reported as a suicide, but many believe that he was murdered. As much of the United States is being hit by freezing temperatures and wintry weather, Israel is bracing for snow as well. Snow has been falling in the Golan Heights in Israel's north since this morning. Jerusalem is also expected to get snow, as well as some other parts of the country. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held a special assessment meeting ahead of the storm, where police and public security ministers reassured that the country was prepared for the major winter storm. And And turning now to our programming for tonight. Coming up right after the news, the Deputy National Director of the Anti-Defamation League, Ken Jacobson, explains why Benjamin Netanyahu made a mistake by not confirming the bipartisan nature of Speaker Boehner's invitation for him to speak at Congress, but why he now favors support for the Prime Minister. Later tonight at 8 o'clock, AJC Executive Director David Harris and European Union of Jewish Students President Jane Braden-Golai talk about current issues facing the Jews of Europe. At 9, Mark Golub sits down with Executive Director of the Jewish Community Center of Krakow, Poland, Jonathan Ornstein, who talks about misconceptions people have about Polish anti-Semitism. And then at 10, Rabbi David Silber discusses the biblical character of Samson, part of the Aleph Society's 2014 Global Day of Jewish Learning. That's all coming up tonight on JBS and jbstv.org. And that's the JBS News Update for Thursday, February the 19th, 2015. I'm Teisha Bader.